What do you do when your family has always dismissed your dreams, only for them to come knocking when they need something from you? Ava's journey from an unnoticed daughter to a successful business owner has been full of struggles, but when her parents reach out for help after years of silence, will she give them what they ask for? Stay tuned to see how Ava takes control of her destiny, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories of strength, resilience, and triumph. My name is Ava, and from the moment I was born, I always felt like the odd one out in my family. My dad had been hoping for a son, and when the doctor announced, "It's a girl," I saw the disappointment in his eyes. That moment shaped so much of my relationship with him. My older sister Emily was the golden child. Smart, talented, and seemingly perfect in my parents' eyes, she could do no wrong. It was always about her achievements. "Did you hear Joy got another A in math?" Or, "Look at Emily's painting, it's beautiful." And there I was, just existing, quietly fading into the background. My report cards barely earned a reaction, and my drawings were often tossed aside. As I got older, I learned to fend for myself. I packed my own lunches, did my laundry, and figured out my homework without anyone's help. It wasn't easy, but it made me independent, strong, even if I felt invisible at times. Then, one day, when I was about 15, something unexpected happened that would change everything. I was hungry after school, and since no one was home to make a snack, I decided to try baking cookies. I followed a recipe from one of Mom's old cookbooks, and to my surprise, they turned out really good. The next day at school, I brought some cookies to share. Sophie, a classmate, tried one and her eyes lit up. "Ava, these are amazing! Did your mom make them?" she asked. "No," I said, smiling proudly. "I made them." Word spread quickly, and soon kids were asking me to bake more. For the first time in my life, I felt seen, like I was good at something, like I had found a way to stand out. I was finally getting noticed, not for being Emily's sister, but for being Ava, the girl who could bake. Excited, I rushed home to tell my parents. "Mom, Dad, guess what? I made cookies and everyone at school loved them." Mom barely looked up from her magazine. "That's nice, dear. Just make sure you clean up the kitchen." Dad frowned. "Cookies, Ava? You should focus on your studies, not waste time in the kitchen." I felt a pang in my chest, but I wasn't about to let their dismissive reactions kill my excitement. I had found something I loved, and I wasn't going to let them hold me back. The gap between Emily and me only widened over time. Emily finished high school with top grades and was accepted into a prestigious college. Our parents celebrated like they had just won the lottery. Meanwhile, I struggled through high school with decent but not spectacular grades. But there was one thing I was sure of: I had found my passion. Every weekend, I baked cakes, pies, and cookies. Soon, even our neighbors started ordering from me. I had turned my love for baking into a small business. One afternoon, Mrs. Megan from next door took a bite of my chocolate cake and said, "Ava, honey, this is incredible. You have real talent." I beamed with pride. "Thanks. I'm thinking of going to culinary school after graduation," I told her. Her eyes sparkled. "Oh, that's wonderful. You'd do so well." But when I shared my dream with my parents, their reactions were far from encouraging. Mom's face fell. "Culinary school? But that's just cooking." Dad's reaction was worse. He slammed his fist on the table. "Absolutely not! No daughter of mine is going to waste her life in a kitchen." "But Dad," I said, trying to explain, "I'm good at it. People love my baking." He scoffed. "So what? You think you can make a living flipping burgers or decorating cakes? Wake up, Ava. The real world doesn't work like that." The words stung, but deep down, I knew what I wanted. Cooking was more than just a hobby. It was something I was good at, something that made me feel alive. And no matter what my parents said, I wasn't going to give up on my dream. Mom added softly, but just as dismissively, "Honey, you need to think about your future. Look at Emily. She's studying finance. She'll have a real career." Their words hurt, but I wasn't ready to give up. I started selling my baked goods at school events and to my classmates. The response was amazing. "Ava, these cookies are incredible." my friend Ethan said with his mouth full of a chocolate chip cookie. You should open a bakery or something. I smiled as I imagined it, my own little bakery filled with the smell of fresh bread and pastries. It felt like a dream, but at home, that dream quickly became a nightmare. One day, Dad found a flyer for my bake sale. "What's this?" he demanded. I swallowed nervously. "It's for school. We're raising money for new computers." He glared at me. "Don't lie to me, Ava. I know you've been selling your treats. This stops now. You need to focus on real studies, not this hobby." "But, Dad, I'm making good money," I said. "Money?" he snapped. "You call a few dollars for cookie money money? Do you know how much your sister makes at her internship? That's real money. That's a real future." I bit my lip, trying not to cry. "I just thought—" He cut me off. "No, you didn't think. Listen carefully. This baking nonsense ends now. You're going to get your grades up and apply to real colleges. If I hear about one more cake or cookie, we'll cut you off. No more college fund, no more support. Got it?" That night, I cried myself to sleep. My dream of culinary school crumbled like an overcooked cookie. The next day, I started looking up business colleges. My heart felt heavy, but I was determined. Somehow, someday, I'd find a way to follow my passion, but for now, I had to play by their rules. College passed in a blur of numbers, spreadsheets, and financial reports. I worked hard on my accounting studies, trying to convince myself it was the right choice. But every time I walked past a bakery or smelled fresh bread, my heart ached for the dream I had left behind. After I got my degree, I landed a job at a big company. My parents were so happy. I rented a small apartment, determined to live on my own. But day after day, as I sat at my desk working on numbers and reports, I felt myself slowly fading inside. One evening, I couldn't take it anymore. I pulled out my old recipe book, its pages worn and stained from happier times. I decided to bake a batch of cupcakes, losing myself in the process of mixing and baking. The next day, I brought them to work. The reaction was immediate. "Oh my God, Ava, these are amazing," my coworker Sophia said. "Where did you buy them?" I hesitated, then said, "Actually, I made them." Words spread fast, and soon people started asking if I could bake cakes for birthdays, kids' parties, and even weddings. At first, I took a few orders on the weekends, but soon I was spending all my free time in the kitchen. My little apartment was always filled with the smell of vanilla and chocolate. Then a big opportunity came. My company's anniversary was coming up, and the director approached me. "Ava, I hear you're a great baker. How would you feel about making the cake for our anniversary party?" My heart raced. This was a huge chance, but also a big risk. Still, I couldn't say no. On the day of the party, I brought in a huge cake decorated with the company's logo and detailed sugar flowers. When I unveiled it, the room went silent. Then the director grinned and said, "This is incredible. Everyone, give it up for Ava, our accounting wizard and apparently master pastry chef." The room filled with applause. The director even hugged me and whispered, "You're wasted in accounting, Ava. This is your true calling." His words stuck with me. As more cake orders came in, I knew I had to make a choice. I was juggling 2 full-time jobs, accountant by day, baker by night. Something had to change. One sleepless night, covered in flour and surrounded by cake orders, I made my decision. The next day, I handed in my resignation. My supervisor was shocked. "But why? You're one of our best employees," she said. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. "I found my true passion," I said simply. I rented a small commercial kitchen and threw myself into my new business, diving headfirst into the excitement and fear of it all. Some nights I worked until the early hours, filling orders, while other days I questioned whether I'd made a huge mistake. But slowly, little by little, my bakery grew. I hired my first employee, then my second. We moved to a bigger space, and before long, my cakes and pastries were becoming well known across the city. I kept it a secret from my parents. As far as they knew, I was still an accountant, climbing the corporate ladder like they expected. I kept telling myself that I was waiting for the right time to tell them the truth, but deep down, I was terrified of their disappointment, their anger, and their rejection. As the bakery gained traction, I knew I had to push even harder. I delved into modern marketing, determined to make my shop stand out. I set up social media pages and posted pictures of my cakes, cookies, and pastries every day. But there was one thing I avoided showing myself. No selfies, no pictures of me as the baker, just my treats. Despite my nerves, the business was flourishing. I teamed up with a local delivery service to reach more customers around the city. I even launched a loyalty program offering discounts to returning customers. Then, one day, I had a big idea. Sweet Tooth Wednesdays. Once a month, we opened our doors and gave away free samples to anyone who walked in. The first time, I was a bundle of nerves. What if no one comes? I fretted out loud to my employee, Madison. She gave me an exasperated look and replied, "Boss, have you tasted your own stuff? People will be lining up." She was right. By noon, the line stretched down the street. Watching people enjoy my treats brought me a joy I never expected. Our bakery became more popular than ever. We started catering for fancy events, supplying desserts to top restaurants, and even shipping my famous cookies across the country. With success came money more than I ever thought I could make just from baking. It was even more than my sister Emily, who worked at a bank, had joked about. I started helping my parents financially, though I pretended it was still from my accounting job. When their roof needed repairs, I paid for it. When they talked about their dream vacation to Europe, I surprised them with tickets. "Oh, Ava, you shouldn't have," Mom would say, but I could see the excitement shining in her eyes. While I was building my business and supporting our parents, Emily was living her best life. She still lived at home, spending her paycheck on designer clothes, gadgets, and self-care. But to our parents, it didn't matter. To them, Emily was still the shining star. "Did you hear about Joy's promotion?" Mom would say proudly. "Vice president at only 31. I forced a smile. "That's great, Emily. Congrats." But it didn't matter how much I accomplished. Running a successful bakery, employing a dozen people, and making hundreds of customers happy every day, it was as if none of it mattered at home. One day at Sweet Dreams Bakery, everything started like normal. I was in the kitchen adding the final touches to a wedding cake when Madison ran in waving an order form. "Boss, you're not going to believe this," she said, eyes wide. I wiped my hands on my apron. "What's up?" "We just got an order for a birthday cake. The delivery address is—" She paused for effect. "Your parents' house." It felt like a splash of cold water. "Are you sure?" I asked. She nodded and handed me the form. There it was. My childhood address, my mom's name, and a note saying it was for her birthday. For a moment, I couldn't breathe, but then an idea formed in my mind. "Madison," I said, trying to sound calm even though my heart was racing. "Clear my schedule. This cake is going to be my masterpiece." For the next week, I put everything into that cake. 3 tiers of Mom's favorite flavors, decorated with hand-piped flowers and delicate sugar designs. It was the best cake I had ever made. As I worked, I pictured the moment. My parents' amazement when they saw the cake, their pride when I told them I made it, and the happiness of finally showing them who I really was. The day of the party arrived. I showed up early with a small gift to keep up the act. The house was full of relatives I hadn't seen in years. "Ava!" Aunt Janice hugged me. "Look at you, all grown up, still crunching numbers." I forced a smile, the usual lie sitting heavy in my throat. "Yep, still at it. Son, I couldn't wait for my cake to arrive." Then the doorbell rang. Mom answered it, and there was our delivery guy holding the familiar Sweet Dreams bakery box. "Special delivery for the birthday girl," he said cheerfully. The room went silent as Mom carried the box to the dining table. She lifted the lid, and everyone gasped. Murmurs of appreciation filled the room as they admired the cake. I stood there, heart pounding, waiting for the right moment to speak. Before I could say anything, Dad cleared his throat. "Before we celebrate," he said in a serious voice, "there's something we need to talk about." The room went silent. Everyone turned to my parents, their faces full of disgust. "We recently found out something," Mom said coldly. "A secret that was kept from us." The tension in the room was unbearable. I felt frozen as Dad spoke again, his voice full of anger. "Can you believe it?" He looked around, pointing straight at me. "Our Ava has been lying to us this whole time. She's not an accountant. She's a pastry chef." He said it like it was the worst thing in the world. I opened my mouth to explain, but no words came out. This couldn't be happening. Dad's face turned red with anger. "We always dreamed our daughters would be successful, respected. Look at Emily, vice president at her age. That's something to be proud of." Emily looked uncomfortable. She avoided my eyes. "But you," Mom said, staring at me, "we gave you everything, every chance, and this is how you repay us? By becoming an ordinary cook." That word, ordinary, hurt more than I ever imagined. Didn't they see what I had built? Didn't they understand? Suddenly, Dad walked over to the table where my cake sat. Before I could react, he flipped the box over. My beautiful cake, my masterpiece, crashed to the floor in a mess of icing and sponge. The guests gasped. "We're not eating this," Dad sneered. "It's beneath us." Mom nodded in agreement. "Ava, you don't belong with respectable people. You've disobeyed us for the last time." Then Dad said the words that felt like a punch to my chest. "We disown you. You are no longer our daughter." I couldn't breathe. This couldn't be real. I looked around, hoping someone, anyone, would stand up for me, but no one did. Even Aunt Janice, who had hugged me earlier, whispered to Uncle David, "I always knew she was trouble." Others nodded in agreement. The room, which had been full of joy just moments ago, now felt cold and unwelcoming. "Leave," Mom said, her voice like ice. "Leave now and never contact us again." I stood there frozen, tears running down my face. How could they do this? How could they throw me away like I was nothing? Everything I had done, everything I had become, it felt so unfair. "Didn't you hear your mother?" Dad shouted. "Get out!" Somehow, I found the strength to move. I turned and walked toward the door, my eyes filled with tears. As I reached for the handle, I heard Emily's voice, soft and hesitant. "Mom, Dad, maybe we should—" But before she could finish, the door closed behind me. I stumbled down the front steps, the same steps I had climbed so many times as a child, but now they felt cold and unwelcoming. I reached my car, and that's when the sobs hit me. Sitting there, I felt like my whole world had crumbled. My dream that my parents would one day accept me had shattered just like my cake on their dining room floor. I don't know how long I cried, but by the time the sun started setting, casting long shadows over the neighborhood I grew up in, I knew one thing for sure. I could never come back here again. The days after that party passed in a blur. I moved like a ghost, barely eating, hardly sleeping. The bakery kept running thanks to my amazing staff, but I was just going through the motions. Slowly, as the shock faded, I threw myself into my work with new energy. If my family couldn't appreciate my passion, I would show the world how great ordinary cooks could be. The bakery thrived. We expanded to a second location, then a third. Magazines wrote about us. I appeared on TV and even got a cookbook deal. Success came in waves, and I rode each one with determination. I bought a beautiful apartment, my own little safe place in the city. Years after my family disowned me, I met Paul. He was kind, supportive, and loved my cakes more than anything. A year later, when he proposed, I said yes without hesitation. Our wedding was small but perfect. As I looked around at the smiling faces of my friends and the family I had chosen, I realized something. I didn't miss my blood relatives at all. These people, my employees, my friends, my husband, were my real family now. Life settled into a happy routine. The bakery continued to grow, and Paul and I built a wonderful life together. I had everything I ever wanted, except maybe closure. That changed on a Sunday afternoon, 5 years after that awful birthday party. I was in my office looking over plans for our new bakery location when my phone rang. The number wasn't one I knew, but something made me answer. "Hello?" I said. "Ava, it's Mom." My mother's voice hesitant but clear. "Please don't hang up. We need to talk." Then she told me everything. The bank where Emily worked had lost its license. There were huge layoffs, and Emily had been out of work for months. They needed help. Before I could even process it, I heard my father's voice jump in. "You need to give Emily a job at your bakery," he said. "As the director, Emily has real business experience. She should run things. You can just be one of the bakers." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After 5 years of silence, this was why they were reaching out? A cold laugh escaped me. "Let me get this straight," I said. "You disowned me, threw me out, and now you want me to hand over my business to Emily?" "We gave you life," Dad shouted. "We raised you. You owe us something." Something inside me snapped. All the pain, all the anger I had buried for years came rushing out. "I owe you nothing," I said, my voice calm but firm. "You made your choice 5 years ago. I'm not your daughter, remember? I'm just an ordinary cook beneath you." I took a deep breath. "I won't be helping you or Emily. Goodbye." I hung up, my hand shaking slightly. For a moment, I just sat there letting it all sink in. Then slowly, a smile spread across my face. I felt lighter, like a weight I didn't even realize I had been carrying was finally gone. I owed them nothing. I was free. Just when I thought my family drama was over, life surprised me again. One quiet Thursday afternoon, my phone rang. I looked at the screen. Emily's number. I hadn't seen it in years. Feeling both curious and nervous, I answered. "Hello?" I said. "Ava?" Joy's voice was soft and unsure. "I hope it's okay that I'm calling." I took a deep breath. "It's okay, Emily. What's going on?" What happened next was a conversation that shifted everything between Emily and me. She apologized profusely for how our parents had treated me, both recently and years ago. "I had no idea they asked you for a job," she said, her voice trembling. "I would never have done that. I'm so sorry, Ava." I felt something inside me soften. "Thank you, Emily. That really means a lot," I said, my voice more fragile than I expected. She continued, explaining how losing her job had been a wake-up call. "It made me realize I was living someone else's dream," she confessed. "Banking, finance. It was never really my passion. It was always Mom and Dad's dream for me, not mine." I listened, barely breathing, as Emily poured out her heart. "Watching you follow your passion and build this incredible business, it inspired me so much, Ava," she added. "I've decided to make a change. I've signed up for interior design courses. I want to create beautiful spaces and finally be true to myself, just like you have." I could feel the warmth in my chest and tears welled up in my eyes. For so long, I thought Emily had everything figured out. I never imagined she was struggling too. "That's amazing, Emily," I said, my voice shaky with emotion. "I'm really happy for you." There was a moment of silence before Emily spoke again, her voice full of emotion. "I'm proud of you, Ava. You stood up for yourself, you followed your dreams, and now you're living the life you've always wanted. That's incredible." Sim, the dam broke then, and I couldn't hold back my tears any longer. The years of hurt, anger, and love I'd carried inside me poured out. We talked for hours, catching up on all the lost time, sharing our dreams, fears, and everything in between. Before we hung up, Emily paused, then said, Maybe we could meet up sometime? Just to talk, to support each other." I found myself nodding, even though she couldn't see me. "I'd love that, Emily. I really would." Thus, over the next few months, Emily and I began meeting regularly. We sipped coffee, indulged in pastries from my bakery, and shared memories of our childhood. We cheered each other on through the highs and lows of our new careers. Emily's interior design business was growing rapidly, and I couldn't have been prouder of her. As for our parents, we heard rumors that they had disowned Emily when she left banking. They told anyone who would listen that their daughters had disappointed them. One was now a simple cook, the other a foolish decorator. But Emily and I knew the truth. We weren't failures. We were following our dreams, building successful careers, and doing what we loved. We had carved out our own paths to happiness. One day, during one of our regular meetups at my bakery, Emily glanced around at the bustling shop, then turned to me with a grin. "You know," she said, I think we turned out pretty great, all things considered. I laughed, feeling warmth spread through me. Yeah, I agreed. I think we did. As I watched Emily sketch design ideas on a napkin, surrounded by the sweet aroma of pastries and the cheerful hum of customers, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Peace. This was my life, messy, challenging, but sweet. Sweet because I had fought for my dreams. I'd lost some battles along the way, but in the end, I had won the war. How do you rebuild after years of rejection and silence from the people you once hoped would support you? How do you find peace when your dreams have been dismissed, but you refuse to let go? For Ava, the journey to peace was a long and painful one. For years, her family's rejection felt like a weight she couldn't shake. Her parents, especially her father, had always pushed her to follow a path they approved of, dismissing her passion for baking as a mere hobby. When they disowned her, it seemed like the final nail in the coffin of her family relationships. But through it all, Ava found strength in herself, strength that led her to open Sweet Dreams Bakery, where she turned her love for baking into a thriving business. But despite her success, Ava kept her achievements hidden from her family. She had made it without them, but the pain of their rejection still lingered. It wasn't until her parents came knocking, expecting her to help their daughter after her financial failure, that Ava's resolve truly solidified. The audacity of their request shattered the last of her illusions. And yet, in the midst of her anger, Ava found a moment of unexpected grace. Emily, her estranged sister, reached out, apologizing, opening up about her own struggles, and admitting that Ava had inspired her to follow her passion. It was in this moment that Ava realized she had never been alone. She had been living her dream, and her sister, despite everything, had been watching and learning from her all along. With Emily's apology and newfound path, Ava finally felt the healing she had been denying herself. Together, they rebuilt their relationship, supporting each other through the ups and downs of their own dreams. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And for the first time in years, Ava allowed herself to feel truly proud of the life she had built not just for herself, but for the people who now believed in her. What about you? How would you have handled the situation with Ava's parents? Do you believe that sometimes we have to choose our own happiness, even if it means walking away from family? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more stories of resilience and hope.
The call came just as I was scrubbing dried egg yolk off my favorite breakfast plate. My father's name lit up my phone screen for the first time in 15 years, and I nearly dropped the dish into the sink. For a moment, I just stood there, water running over my hands, wondering if this was some kind of cosmic joke. My name is Morgan, and until that moment, I thought I had my life figured out. Sure, my marriage to Sam wasn't perfect, but whose is? And yes, maybe our son Jake hadn't spoken to us in months, but that's what kids do in college, right? They drift away, find themselves. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. I let the phone ring 4 times before answering. Hello. Morgan. My father's voice was thinner than I remembered, but it still carried that stern edge that used to make me sit up straighter at the dinner table. I need to see you. Walter. I switched off the faucet, wiping my hands on my jeans. Is everything okay? A dry chuckle crackled through the line. No, not really. I'm dying, Morgan. Cancer. Doctors say I've got about 6 months. The kitchen suddenly felt too small, too warm. I pulled out a chair and sank into it, my legs weak. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything then. Just come see me. There are things we need to discuss. Things about your mother, about what happened back then. My stomach clenched. That was 15 years ago. We both agreed. No, he cut me off. You agreed. You and that husband of yours. I just watched you walk away. From somewhere upstairs, I heard Sam moving around, probably getting ready for work. His footsteps always seemed heavier lately, like he was carrying some invisible weight. Look, my father continued, his voice softening slightly. I know this isn't fair, but I found something in your mother's old things. A letter. It's about that summer, Morgan. The one before everything fell apart. I closed my eyes, memories threatening to surface. Dad, I can't just. Please. The word hung there, foreign and desperate from a man who'd never begged for anything in his life. I'm at the same house. You remember the address? Of course I do. How could I forget? The white colonial with the crooked mailbox, where my mother had planted roses that never quite took. Where everything had changed. Come today if you can. Alone. He paused, and I could hear him struggling to catch his breath. And Morgan? Don't tell Sam. The line went dead before I could respond. I sat there, staring at my phone, until Sam's footsteps reached the kitchen doorway. Everything okay, honey? His voice was casual, but there was something else there. Something watchful in the way he leaned against the doorframe in his perfectly pressed suit. Wrong number, I said, the lie slipping out easier than it should have. Just some telemarketer. Sam nodded, adjusting his tie. Listen, I've got a late meeting tonight. Don't wait up. Another late meeting. They've been happening more frequently lately. Along with the mysterious phone calls he took in our garage and the receipts I found for restaurants I'd never been to. Sure. I smiled, the expression feeling plastic on my face. I might go visit an old friend anyway. He barely looked at me as he grabbed his briefcase and headed for the door. I waited until I heard his car pull out of the driveway before I let myself really think about what I was about to do.
My father was dying.
He had a letter from my mother, and whatever was in it had been important enough to break 15 years of silence. I glanced at the clock, 9:15 a.m. Sam wouldn't be home until late. He'd made that clear. Plenty of time to drive to my childhood home and finally face whatever truth my father needed to share. What I didn't know then was that this wasn't just about my father's secrets. It was about Sam's too. And by the end of that day, everything I thought I knew about my life would be turned upside down. The drive to my father's house felt like traveling back in time. Every landmark brought back memories I'd spent years trying to forget. As I pulled into the cracked driveway, I noticed the roses were gone, replaced by overgrown weeds that seemed to be slowly consuming the house itself. My father opened the door before I could knock. The sight of him knocked the wind out of me. The commanding presence I remembered had shrunk into someone I barely recognized, gaunt, pale, with clothes that hung loose on his frame. You look just like your mother, he said, his voice rougher than it had been on the phone. I followed him inside, where time seemed to have stopped 15 years ago. The same faded wallpaper, the same worn furniture, even the same smell of coffee and old books. But there was something else now, the sterile scent of medication and illness. You should have told me sooner, I said, watching him lower himself carefully into his old armchair. He waved off my concern. Would you have come? The question hung between us like smoke. We both knew the answer. I found this last week, he said, reaching for an envelope on the side table. Your mother left it in her recipe box. It's dated just before everything happened. My hands trembled as I took it. The envelope was yellowed, my mother's elegant handwriting faded but still clear. For Morgan, when the truth comes out. Have you read it? He shook his head. Wasn't meant for me. But Morgan, there's something else you need to know. Something about that summer, about why I couldn't help you when Sam. A sudden coughing fit seized him, violent enough to double him over. I rushed to get him water, finding my way around the kitchen as if I'd never left. When I returned, there was blood on his handkerchief. How bad is it? I asked, handing him the glass. Stage 4. Started in the lungs, spread to the liver. He took a careful sip. The treatments might buy me a few more months, but they cost more than I have. I had to remortgage the house just to start them. I sat down heavily on the couch. Why didn't you ask for help? Because I still owe people money from last time. From when you came to me about Sam's gambling debts. The memory hit me like a slap. Sam, wild-eyed and desperate, confessing he'd lost everything. Me, begging my father for help. The look of disappointment on his face as he wrote the check that would save my marriage but destroy our relationship. That debt was paid, I said quietly.
No.
He leaned forward, his eyes intense. What I gave Sam that day wasn't mine to give. I borrowed it, Morgan. From people who don't forget. And now they're calling it in. My phone buzzed, a text from Sam. Where are you? We need to talk about the account. I ignored it, my mind racing. How much? With interest? Close to $500,000. The room seemed to tilt. That's impossible. Sam told me he paid you back within a year. My father's laugh was bitter. Is that what he told you? Read your mother's letter, Morgan. She knew things about Sam, things she tried to warn me about before she died. I didn't listen then, but maybe you will now. Another text from Sam. Seriously, where are you? The bank called. I stared at the envelope in my hands, remembering Sam's late meeting tonight, all the unexplained absences, the way money seemed to disappear from our accounts lately. There's something else, my father said, his voice growing weaker. The people I borrowed from? They've been watching Sam. They say he's in trouble again, deeper than before. And this time, he's dragged someone else into it. My blood ran cold.
Who? Jake.
Your son came to see me last month. He was asking questions about Sam's business partners. Said he'd found something in Sam's office that scared him. The third text from Sam came just as my father finished speaking. The police were just here. Don't go home. I looked up from my phone to meet my father's knowing gaze. Whatever was in my mother's letter, whatever Sam had done, one thing was clear. The life I'd built on 15 years of silence was about to come crashing down. And somewhere in the middle of it all was my son, walking into the same trap that had snared me all those years ago. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I sat in my car outside Jake's apartment near campus, my mother's unopened letter burning a hole in my purse, watching shadows move behind his window. My phone had exploded with messages from Sam, each one more desperate than the last. But it was the single text from Jake that kept me frozen in place. Don't trust Dad. Don't tell him you're coming to see me. When Jake finally emerged from his building, he looked older somehow, his shoulders tight with tension. He spotted my car immediately, as if he'd been expecting me. We can't talk here, he said, sliding into the passenger seat. There's a diner about 20 minutes away. Follow my directions. The Jake I knew would have hugged me, would have had 1,000 questions about why I was there. This Jake stared straight ahead, his jaw clenched. Your grandfather told me you visited him, I said, pulling away from the curb. Yeah, well, someone had to look into what Dad's been doing. He glanced at his phone, then turned it off completely. Did you know he's been using my social security number? My hands tightened on the steering wheel. What? Turn left here. Jake's voice was flat. He opened accounts in my name. Credit cards, loans. I found the paperwork in his office when I was home last month. That's why I went to see Grandpa Walter. I thought maybe he knew something about Dad's business partners. The diner appeared ahead, a neon oasis in the growing dark. Inside, Jake chose a booth far from the windows. He looked exhausted up close, with dark circles under his eyes that reminded me too much of his father. How bad is it? Asked after the waitress brought us coffee. Jake pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. See for yourself. The documents inside told a story that made my stomach turn. Credit applications, bank statements, loan documents, all in Jake's name, all signed with perfect forgeries of his signature. The amounts were staggering. There's more, Jake said, his voice finally cracking. I followed Dad last week. He met with these guys. They didn't look like regular businessmen. One of them mentioned something about collection methods if the payments didn't come through. A memory surfaced. Sam's split lip and bruised ribs 15 years ago, his shaking hands as he begged me to ask my father for money. History wasn't just repeating itself, it was escalating. Why didn't you come to me? I asked. Jake's laugh was bitter. Like you came to me about Grandpa being sick? Or about whatever happened 15 years ago that tore the family apart. We don't talk about real things in our family, Mom. We just pretend everything's fine until it explodes. Before I could respond, Jake's phone, which he'd turned back on, buzzed with a text. The color drained from his face as he read it. Dad knows I have the documents, he said. He's at my apartment right now. My coffee turned to acid in my stomach.
How?
My roommate must have told him. Jake ran his hands through his hair, a gesture so like his father's it hurt to watch. Mom, there's something else. I found another set of papers in Dad's office. Letters from someone named Claire. They're not just business letters. The name hit me like a physical blow.
Claire.
The woman Sam had almost left me for before everything fell apart 15 years ago. The reason we'd needed my father's money in the first place. My phone lit up with a new message from Sam. I know Jake showed you the papers. We can fix this. Like we fixed it last time. Just come home and we'll talk. I looked at my son, really looked at him, and saw the weight of secrets crushing him just like they'd crushed me at his age. I thought about my mother's letter, still unread, about my dying father and his unpaid debts, about all the lies I'd told myself to keep my marriage intact. No, I said, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. We're not fixing it this time. We're ending it. Jake's eyes widened. What are you going to do? I pulled out my mother's letter, finally ready to read it. First, we're going to learn the truth. All of it. Then we're going to make your father face what he's done. To all of us. What I didn't tell Jake was that I'd seen a business card fall from his folder. Detective Laura Bennett, Financial Crimes Division. My son had already started down a path that would either save us or destroy us all. My mother's handwriting blurred as I read her letter for the third time, sitting in my father's kitchen while Jake paced and Walter dozed in his chair. The truth she'd tried to warn us about 15 years ago was worse than I'd imagined. Sam hadn't just been gambling back then. He'd been laundering money for the same people who were now threatening our son. We need to go to the police, Jake said, stopping by the window. Detective Bennett already has a file on Dad's activities. I folded the letter carefully. It's not that simple. If we report him, these people will come after all of us, including your grandfather. They're already coming after us. Jake's voice cracked. Look what they made Dad do to me. Using my identity, forging my signature. He's destroyed my credit, my future. A knock at the door made us all freeze. Walter stirred in his chair, suddenly alert despite his medication. Jake moved away from the window, and I saw fear flash across his face. It's Sam, he whispered. His car's outside. Before I could stop him, Walter was pushing himself up, moving toward the door with surprising speed. When he opened it, Sam stood there in his perfectly tailored suit, looking more disheveled than I'd ever seen him. Morgan. His voice was soft, reasonable, the voice he used when closing deals. We need to talk.
No.
The word came out stronger than I expected. Whatever you're going to say, the answer is no. He stepped inside anyway, his eyes taking in Jake's presence, the letter in my hands, Walter's defensive stance. You don't understand. I had to do it. They were going to take everything. Like you took everything from me? Jake moved forward, but I caught his arm. Did you think I wouldn't find out about the loans? About Claire? Sam's face went white at the name. You've been in my office. Someone had to look for the truth. Jake shot back. Mom wouldn't. Grandpa couldn't. So I did. The truth? Sam laughed, but there was an edge of hysteria to it. You want the truth? Fine. I made mistakes. But everything I did to protect this family. To give you the life you deserved. By stealing my identity? Jake pulled away from me. By threatening Grandpa? I never threatened. No. Walter cut in, his voice steady despite his weakness. You just sent your business associates to do it for you. Like you did 15 years ago. Sam turned to me, his eyes pleading. Morgan, please. We can fix this. I have a plan. One last deal that will set everything right. Like the last deal? I opened my mother's letter. The one that got Kevin Martinez killed? The name hung in the air like smoke. Sam's face went from white to gray. How did you? He started. Mom knew, I said quietly. She wrote it all down before she died. How you convinced Kevin to help you move money through his restaurant. How he threatened to go to the police when he found out where the money came from. How he disappeared 3 days later. That wasn't me, Sam whispered, but his hands were shaking. I didn't know they would. A car door slammed outside. Through the window, I saw 2 men in dark suits approaching the house. Sam's business associates, right on schedule. Jake, I said, keeping my voice steady, take your grandfather to the back room.
Now.
Morgan. Sam reached for me, but I stepped back. You have two choices, I said, pulling out Detective Bennett's card. Either you tell these men you're done, that you're going to the police and taking whatever deal they offer, or I make the call right now. They'll kill me, he said. Maybe. I met his eyes. But if you don't choose, they'll kill all of us, including your son. The knock came, heavy and insistent. Sam looked at the door, then at me, then at the hallway where Jake had disappeared with Walter. 25 years of marriage, and I finally saw him clearly, a man trapped by his own lies, desperate to maintain control even as everything crumbled. Time's up, I said, holding up my phone. What's it going to be? The knocking grew louder, and Sam made his choice. But it wasn't the one any of us expected. Sam opened the door before I could stop him. The two men pushed past him into Walter's house like they owned it, their expensive suits a stark contrast to the worn furniture and faded walls. I recognized one of them from photos in my mother's letter. Marcus Chin, the man who'd visited Kevin Martinez the night he disappeared. Family reunion? Marcus smiled, but his eyes were cold. How touching. The other man closed the door, positioning himself in front of it. Sam stood between them and me, his hands raised in a placating gesture. I can explain everything. No need, Marcus said. We already know about the detective, about the evidence your son collected, about the letter. He looked at me. Your mother was quite thorough, wasn't she, Mrs. Flynn? A crash from the back room made everyone turn. Jake appeared in the hallway, supporting Walter, who looked even paler than before. Get out of my house, Walter wheezed, but the effort sent him into another coughing fit. Dad, please, I started, but Marcus cut me off. Actually, this works out perfectly. Everyone who needs to hear this is right here. He pulled out his phone, showing us a video. My stomach dropped as I recognized Detective Bennett entering a building. Your detective friend? She had an unfortunate accident an hour ago. Nothing fatal, we're not monsters. But she'll be indisposed for a while. Jake took a step forward, but I grabbed his arm. Don't. Smart woman, Marcus nodded. Now, here's what's going to happen. Sam's going to finish what he started. One more transaction, clean and simple. Jake's identity is already in place for the accounts.
No.
The word came out before I could stop it. Marcus's smile widened. No? Maybe I should show you another video. This one's from 15 years ago. Kevin Martinez's last night at his restaurant. Sam, you remember that night, don't you? Sam's face went ashen. You said you deleted that. Insurance, Marcus shrugged. Like the new evidence we have about Walter's involvement in covering up certain financial irregularities. Prison's not kind to sick old men. I felt the weight of Detective Bennett's card in my pocket, now useless. My mother's letter seemed to burn where I'd tucked it into my waistband. She'd known this might happen, had tried to warn us about the web Sam was weaving. How much? I asked. Mom, no. Jake started. 5 million, Marcus said. Through the account Sam set up in Jake's name. Clean, untraceable. Or we start sending videos to the police. First Kevin's, then some interesting footage of Walter from back in the day. Maybe even that security tape from Sam's office showing Jake stealing documents. The second man moved away from the door, pulling out papers. Everything's ready. Just needs the right signatures. I looked at my family, Jake, his youth already marked by our mistakes. Walter, dying but still trying to protect us. Sam, trapped in a prison of his own making. 25 years of choices, lies, and compromises had led us here. Then I remembered something else from my mother's letter. A safety deposit box key, taped to the last page. What if I could offer you something better than money? Marcus raised an eyebrow. I'm listening. Mom, what are you doing? Jake whispered. I pulled out my phone, bringing up a photo I'd taken of one particular page from my mother's letter. Kevin Martinez kept records. Everything about your operation, going back 30 years.
My mother found them before she died.
They're in a safety deposit box. Marcus's smile faltered for the first time. You're bluffing. Am I? Why do you think she wrote that letter? Why do you think Sam's been so desperate to find it? I looked at my husband, seeing the recognition dawn in his eyes. That's what you were really looking for all these years, wasn't it? Sam nodded slowly, finally understanding. The records. They destroy everything. Here's my offer, I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. Leave my family alone. All of us, including Sam. In return, those records stay buried. Marcus studied me for a long moment, and if we refuse? I held up my phone. Then every news outlet in the country gets these photos in the next 5 minutes. I may go down, but I'll take you with me. The silence that followed was deafening. In it, I heard my mother's voice from the letter. Sometimes the only way to protect what matters is to risk everything. Marcus made his choice. But this time, we were ready for it. Marcus's choice came in the form of a single nod to his partner. Before any of us could react, the second man grabbed Jake, pressing something against his back. The implied threat was clear. The safety deposit box, Marcus said calmly.
Now.
My bluff had failed. Worse, I'd put Jake in danger. Sam stepped forward, but Marcus raised a hand. Stay where you are, or your son learns exactly how his namesake Uncle Jimmy died. The color drained from Sam's face. You said. I say lots of things, Sam. Like how I said your family would be protected if you played along. Marcus turned to me. The key, Mrs. Flynn. Don't make me ask again. Walter struggled to stand straighter. Morgan, don't. Shut up, old man, Marcus snapped. Your daughter's going to make the right choice. Just like she did 15 years ago when she chose to keep quiet about Kevin Martinez. The truth hit me like a physical blow. You knew? All this time. You knew I saw what happened. Of course we knew. Why do you think Sam married you so quickly afterward? We needed insurance that you'd keep quiet. Marcus smiled. Sam played his part perfectly. Didn't you, Sam? I looked at my husband. Really looked at him. 25 years of marriage, and I finally saw the truth in his eyes. It wasn't real. Any of it. Morgan, please, Sam's voice cracked. It started that way, but... The key, Marcus interrupted. Or should we discuss this family's history in front of Jake? Jake struggled against his captor. Mom, don't give them anything. Whatever it is, it's not worth. The man holding him tightened his grip, and Jake's words cut off in a gasp of pain. My mother's letter had warned me about this moment. When they come, she'd written, they'll try to take everything. Don't let them take your soul, too. I pulled out the safety deposit box key, watching Marcus's eyes light up with triumph. But as I held it out, Walter suddenly lurched forward, knocking into the man holding Jake. In the chaos that followed, several things happened at once. Jake broke free, stumbling toward me. Walter collapsed, his breathing ragged. And through the window, I caught a flash of red and blue lights. Marcus saw them too. His face twisted with rage as he grabbed the key from my hand. You called them. No, I said, helping Walter into a chair. But I knew someone would. Sam stepped between Marcus and me. It's over. The police are here. You're right, Marcus said softly. Then he pulled out a gun. It is over. The front door burst open, and Detective Bennett appeared, arm in a sling but eyes fierce. Drop it, Marcus. More officers poured in behind her. Marcus looked at the key in his hand, then at me. You know what's funny? The box is empty. Has been for years. Your mother moved everything to a digital file before she died. He smiled one last time. Check your email, Mrs. Flynn. I'm sure it's fascinating reading. As the police took Marcus and his partner into custody, I opened my phone with trembling hands. There it was, an email from my mother, dated to be delivered today. 15 years of secrets, waiting to destroy what was left of my family. Mom? Jake's voice was small, uncertain. What does he mean about Dad marrying you? About Uncle Jimmy? I looked at Sam, who stood defeated by the window. At Walter, who couldn't meet my eyes. At Detective Bennett, who watched me with something like pity. The truth, I said finally, is that our whole life has been built on lies. And now we have to decide what to do with them. My phone felt heavy in my hand, my mother's email unopened. Sometimes the truth doesn't set you free. Sometimes it just shows you the bars of your cage more clearly. But as I stood there in my father's house, surrounded by the wreckage of 25 years of deception, I realized something. The only way forward was through the truth, no matter how much it hurt. I opened the email and began to read. Detective Bennett sat across from me in the station's interview room, my mother's email printed out between us. Outside, I could hear Sam being processed, his voice carrying that same smooth confidence he'd used to lie to me for 25 years. "Your mother was thorough," Bennett said, tapping the papers. "Bank records, photographs, recordings, everything we need to put Marcus away for life." "And Sam. What about Jimmy?" I asked. "Sam's brother?" Bennett's expression softened. "The file confirms what Marcus implied. Jimmy Flynn didn't die in a car accident. He was killed after threatening to expose their operation. Sam knew. He's always known." A knock at the door interrupted us. Jake stood there, looking older than his 21 years. "They're ready for Mom's statement." "Wait," I said as Bennett started to rise. "There's something else you need to see." I pulled out my phone, showing them the text I'd received an hour ago from an unknown number. "Meet me at Kevin's old restaurant. Come alone, or Sam takes the fall for everything." "See, Claire," Jake said. "Dad's old girlfriend?" Bennett frowned. "We haven't been able to locate her. She disappeared right after Kevin Martinez's murder." "Because she never left," I said. "She's been working with Marcus this whole time. The affair with Sam, the threats, everything, it was all part of their plan." "Mom, no." Jake grabbed my arm. "You can't meet her. She's the only one who knows where the original evidence is," I said. "Without it, Marcus's lawyers will tear this case apart. Sam will walk free, and everything we've been through will mean nothing." Bennett studied me. "You're not going alone." "Yes, I am." I stood up. "Claire won't show if she suspects anything. And I need answers about Sam, about why my mother trusted her with those records." "At least we're a wire," Bennett insisted. I shook my head. "No recordings. No backup. Just me and the truth." The restaurant was dark when I arrived, its windows boarded up since Kevin's death. Claire stood in the shadows of the entrance, barely changed from the photos in my mother's file. "You figured it out," she said as I approached. "Faster than we expected."
We.
She smiled. "Your mother and I. We've been planning this for 15 years. The world tilted sideways. "What? Why do you think she kept such detailed records? Why did she wait until now to reveal everything?" Claire stepped closer. She knew what Sam was, what Marcus had done to Kevin. We worked together, gathering evidence, waiting for the right moment. "You were my mother's informant," I whispered. "Someone had to protect you. Your mother knew she was dying, knew Sam would never let you go willingly. So we created a trail, knowing someday you'd follow it. The affair with Sam was a way to get close, to gain Marcus's trust."
Claire pulled out a USB drive.
"Everything's here, the original files, recordings of Marcus confessing to Jimmy's murder, proof of Sam's involvement from the beginning. Your mother called it her insurance policy." I reached for the drive, but Claire held it back. "First, you need to decide, what kind of justice are you looking for?" "What do you mean?" "Sam's looking at 20 years minimum. But with this?" She held up the drive. "He'll never see daylight again. Is that what you want? For Jake to lose his father forever?" I thought about Sam's lies, about Jake's pain, about my mother's years of silent preparation, about revenge versus justice, and the thin line between them. "I want the truth," I said finally. "All of it. Whatever that means for Sam, for all of us." Claire nodded, handing over the drive. "Your mother would be proud. She always said you were stronger than you knew." As I took the drive, police lights suddenly flooded the restaurant. Bennett's voice rang out. "Claire Anderson, you're under arrest." I looked at Claire in shock, but she was smiling. "Did you really think I'd let you come alone? Some truths need witnesses, Morgan. That's what your mother taught me." As Bennett's team moved in, I clutched the drive containing 15 years of carefully gathered truth. Sam's fate, Jake's future, my mother's final justice. All of it resting in my hands. Now I just had to decide what to do with it. 6 months after Sam's arrest, I sat beside Walter's hospital bed, holding his hand as he drifted in and out of consciousness. Jake dozed in a chair nearby, research papers spread across his lap. He'd transferred to a local college to be closer to us, though he insisted it was just for better internship opportunities. The USB drive from Claire had changed everything, but not in the way I'd expected. Instead of using all the evidence, I'd made a different choice. I gave prosecutors enough to convict Marcus and his organization, but held back the worst of Sam's involvement. 10 years instead of life. A chance for redemption instead of destruction. "You're thinking too loud," Walter mumbled, his eyes fluttering open. "Just wondering if I made the right choice," I said softly. "About Sam?" He squeezed my hand weakly. "You chose mercy. That's never wrong." Jake stirred, looking up from his papers. "Grandpa's right. Dad's letters from prison. He's different now. Actually talking about things, not just manipulating." The latest letter sat in my purse unopened. Sam wrote every week, each envelope containing a piece of truth he'd never shared before. Small confessions, genuine regrets, memories of moments when our love had been real despite its fraudulent beginnings. Claire's testimony at the sentencing, Jake continued, about how Mom planned everything. "I keep thinking about that. How she protected us even after she was gone." "She protected you," Walter corrected. "Morgan was just the weapon she chose." A knock at the door interrupted us. Detective Bennett stood there, holding a familiar-looking envelope. "This came to the station today. From Claire's personal effects." My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a photograph I'd never seen before, my mother and Claire sitting in Kevin's restaurant, both smiling. On the back, my mother's handwriting. "Sometimes the greatest act of love is letting go of revenge." "There's something else," Bennett said, pulling out a document. "Claire's confession. She admitted to killing Kevin Martinez herself to protect your mother. He wasn't just threatening to expose the operation, he was threatening to reveal your mother's role as an informant." The truth settled over me like a heavy blanket. My mother hadn't just been gathering evidence, she'd been protecting her own secrets, her own sins. The perfect justice I'd been seeking had never existed. "What are you going to do?" Jake asked. I looked at the confession, then at Walter's tired face, at Jake's concerned eyes. "Nothing," I said finally. "Some truths don't need to be told. Some debts don't need to be collected." Walter nodded, understanding in his gaze. "Like mother, like daughter." "Speaking of debts," Bennett added, "Marcus's assets have been seized. The court awarded restitution to his victims, including the money Walter borrowed 15 years ago." Jake sat up straighter. "So the house is yours," Bennett smiled at Walter. "Free and clear." Walter's eyes filled with tears. "I never thought." "I did," I said, squeezing his hand. "Mom did too. That's why she kept fighting." Later that evening, as Jake drove us home from the hospital, he asked the question I'd been expecting. "Are you going to visit Dad?" "Soon," I said, watching the familiar streets pass by. "When I'm ready to hear the whole truth. When we're both ready to build something real from all these lies." At home, I finally opened Sam's latest letter. Inside was a single sentence. "I loved you most when I deserved you least." I thought about my mother's final message, about Claire's sacrifice, about Walter's forgiveness and Jake's resilience, about how revenge and justice sometimes look exactly like mercy. Tomorrow I would visit Sam, not to condemn or forgive, but to understand, to see if anything true could grow in the space between revenge and redemption. But tonight, I sat on my father's porch with my son, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors my mother would have loved. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't in winning the fight, but in choosing which battles to let go. And sometimes, just sometimes, that's enough.
I never thought a single piece of paper could destroy everything I'd worked for. But there it was, sitting innocently on my desk between Teresa Martinez's book report and Danny Chen's math homework. A plain white envelope with my name written in perfect cursive. My name is Harper, and until that Monday morning in October, I was living what I considered a pretty good life. I'd spent the last 5 years teaching 3rd grade at Riverside Elementary, had finally paid off my student loans, and was 3 months into living with Lucas, the kind of guy who brings you coffee in bed and never complains about doing the dishes. The first warning bell hadn't rung yet, and my classroom still had that early morning emptiness that usually felt peaceful. Not today. My hands trembled as I opened the envelope, the paper inside crisp and expensive feeling. Dear Miss Sullivan, your inappropriate relationship with a married parent from last year's class has been noted. Resign quietly, or the school board will receive evidence of your misconduct. You have until Friday to make your decision. I read it 3 times, my stomach dropping further with each pass. The accusation was completely false. I'd never had any kind of relationship with a parent, married or otherwise. But my mind raced through every interaction I'd had with parents over the past year, searching for anything that could be twisted into something sinister. Harper, you okay? I jumped, quickly stuffing the letter into my desk drawer. Sarah Chen, Danny's mom and our PTA president, stood in my doorway with a concerned look on her face. Oh, good morning, Sarah. Just lost in thought. I forced a smile, hoping she couldn't see how badly my hands were shaking. Thanks again for organizing the fall festival. The kids are so excited. Of course. Though I can't take all the credit. Evelyn Prescott's connections really helped secure the donations this year. Sarah beamed. She's quite something, isn't she? Such an influential woman in our community. I nodded, trying to keep my expression neutral at the mention of Lucas's mother. I still hadn't met her despite dating her son for over a year. Lucas always had some reason why the timing wasn't right. The first students started trickling in, filling the room with their usual morning chatter. I went through the motions of greeting them, checking homework, and starting our daily routine. But my mind kept drifting to that letter, tucked away in my desk like a ticking bomb. During lunch, I called Lucas. Hey, beautiful, what's up? His voice was warm, familiar. I need to talk to you about something. It's important. I lowered my voice, though the teacher's lounge was empty. Someone left a threatening letter on my desk this morning. The line went quiet for a moment. What kind of threat? I explained about the letter, the accusation, the deadline. With each word, the silence on his end grew heavier. I'll come over tonight, he finally said. We'll figure this out together, okay? But something in his voice made me uneasy. Like he wasn't entirely surprised. That afternoon, as I was packing up to leave, I noticed another envelope on my desk. My heart nearly stopped, but this one was different. A cream-colored invitation to the annual Prescott Family Foundation Charity Gala. The note attached read, Dear Miss Sullivan, your presence is requested this Saturday evening. We look forward to finally meeting our sons. Companion. Regards, Evelyn Prescott. Perfect cursive matched the threatening letter exactly. I sat there, staring at both pieces of paper as the pieces started falling into place. Lucas had always said his mother was protective, traditional, concerned about the family's reputation. But this was something else entirely. I pulled out my phone to call him again, but stopped. Instead, I took photos of both the letter and the invitation, my hands steady now. If Evelyn Prescott wanted to play games, she'd learn I wasn't the easy target she thought I was. Lucas arrived at my apartment that evening with takeout from our favorite Thai place, but I couldn't eat. I kept thinking about those 2 letters sitting in my bag, their matching handwriting like a signature on my death warrant. You're sure it's your mother's handwriting? I asked, pushing my pad thai around the container. Lucas ran his hand through his hair, a nervous habit I'd noticed early in our relationship. I can't be certain, but... He trailed off, avoiding my eyes. Look, my mother can be intense about certain things, but threatening your career? That doesn't sound like her. I pulled out both letters, laying them side by side on the coffee table. Really? 'Cause these look pretty identical to me. And suddenly she wants to meet me after a year of convenient excuses? Harper, please. His voice had that pleading tone that usually melted my resolve. Not tonight. The gala could be a good thing. A chance to clear the air. Clear the air? Lucas, someone is threatening my job. My entire career could be ruined, and you're acting like this is just some minor family drama. The doorbell rang, making us both jump. Through the peephole, I saw my mother standing there with her signature worried expression. I called her, Lucas admitted quietly. I thought, maybe we could use some perspective. My mother swept in, bringing with her the familiar scent of library books and lavender hand cream. One look at my face and she pulled me into a hug. Oh, sweetie, she said, then turned to Lucas. Would you mind giving us a moment? He nodded, grabbing his keys. I'll go pick up some coffee. We could all use some. Once he was gone, my mother picked up the letters, examining them with the same careful attention she gave to rare books at her library. Well, she said finally, someone certainly wants to get your attention. But threatening letters rarely come with formal party invitations. Mom, this isn't funny. No, it's not. But it is revealing. She sat down, patting the spot next to her. Tell me about Lucas's mother. What do you know about her? I realized, sitting there, how little I actually knew. She's some kind of socialite. Runs a family foundation. Lucas doesn't talk about her much. And in a year of dating, she's never made an effort to meet you? My mother's tone was gentle, but I heard the concern underneath. That's quite a statement in itself, don't you think? Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Jenna. Why didn't you tell me Lucas was a Prescott? Like Prescott Foundation Prescotts? Just saw the gala guest list at work. Girl, we need to talk. My stomach dropped. I showed the text to my mother, whose eyebrows shot up. The Prescotts. She let out a low whistle. Honey, that family practically built this city. Their foundation funds half the hospitals in the state, including the one where Jenna works. The door opened and Lucas returned, carrying 3 coffee cups. He froze when he saw our expressions. When were you going to tell me? I asked quietly. Tell you what? That you're not just some regular software developer. That you're part of the Prescott family. He set the coffee down carefully, like he was buying time. It's not. I didn't want it to change things between us. You're so real, so genuine. Everyone else I've dated only saw the family name. So you just decided to hide a huge part of your life from me? For a year. My voice cracked. And now your mother is threatening my career because, what, I'm not good enough for a Prescott? Harper, that's not. My mother stood up, gathering her purse. I think you two have some talking to do. Harper, call me tomorrow. She hugged me, whispering, remember, people who play games usually have something to lose. After she left, Lucas and I sat in silence. Finally, he spoke. I'll talk to my mother. Clear this up. Just come to the gala. Give her a chance to know you. I looked at him, this man I thought I knew completely, and wondered what else he wasn't telling me. Fine, I said. But I want the truth, Lucas. All of it. No more secrets. He nodded, but something in his expression made me wonder if I was walking straight into Evelyn Prescott's trap. Prescott Mansion loomed before me like something out of a Gothic novel, complete with wrought iron gates and perfectly manicured hedges. I smoothed down my dress, the nicest one I own, but probably worth less than one of their doorknobs, and tried to ignore the trembling in my hands. Ready? Lucas squeezed my hand, but I noticed he was sweating too. Before I could answer, the massive front door swung open. A tall woman with steel gray hair and perfect posture stood there, wearing what looked like casual evening wear but probably cost more than my yearly salary. Lucas, darling. Evelyn Prescott's voice was honey smooth, but her eyes were arctic when they landed on me. And this must be your teacher friend. The way she said teacher made it sound like a communicable disease. Mother, this is Harper Sullivan. Harper, my mother, Evelyn Prescott. I extended my hand. It's lovely to finally meet you, Mrs. Prescott. She ignored my hand, turning back into the house. Do come in. Henry's waiting in the study. The interior was exactly what you'd expect from old money, antiques, oil paintings, and the subtle smell of lemon polish. But something felt off, staged almost like we were walking onto a set rather than into a home. Lucas's father turned out to be surprisingly warm, greeting me with a genuine smile and firm handshake. Harper, we've heard so much about you. Though not nearly enough, I'd say. He shot a pointed look at his wife. Well, Evelyn said, settling into an armchair like it was a throne, perhaps Miss Sullivan could tell us more about herself. Your background, for instance. I felt Lucas tense beside me. Mother. It's fine, I cut in, meeting her gaze. I grew up here in the city. My mother's a librarian. My father passed when I was young. I put myself through college and have been teaching at Riverside Elementary for 5 years now. How admirable. Evelyn's smile didn't reach her eyes. Though I understand there have been some concerns at the school recently. My blood ran cold. Lucas stood up abruptly. I need a drink. Harper. White wine, please, I managed, though my throat felt desert dry. Henry, help him with the drinks? Evelyn's tone made it clear it wasn't a request. Once we were alone, she leaned forward. Let's be direct, shall we? Lucas has a bright future ahead of him. Prescott Foundation is expanding internationally, and he'll be taking a leading role. He needs someone suitable, and a teacher isn't suitable? Oh dear. She laughed softly. You seem intelligent enough. Surely you understand that Lucas was merely experimenting with a simpler life, playing at being ordinary. But he belongs in our world. The world of threatening letters and blackmail? Her expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. I'm sure I don't know what you mean, though it would be unfortunate if certain allegations about your professional conduct were to surface. Before I could respond, Lucas returned with the drinks. But he wasn't alone. A stunning woman about my age followed him in, moving with the kind of confidence that comes from never having to shop clearance racks. Victoria. Evelyn's entire demeanor transformed. What a lovely surprise. I hope you don't mind me dropping by, Victoria said, her smile dazzling. When I heard Lucas was home for dinner. Of course not, darling. You're practically family. Evelyn's emphasis on family felt like a slap. Victoria and Lucas practically grew up together. They were even engaged briefly, weren't you, dears? I watched Lucas's face carefully. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Ancient history, Victoria laughed, but her gaze lingered on Lucas. Though some things are worth revisiting, wouldn't you say? The room suddenly felt airless. I stood up, my untouched wine glass trembling slightly. Excuse me, I need to use the restroom. Down the hall, second door on the right, Evelyn directed, her voice dripping with false concern. Though if you're feeling unwell, we'd completely understand if you needed to leave early. As I walked away, I heard Victoria's musical laugh mixing with Evelyn's satisfied chuckle. But it was Lucas's silence that hurt the most. In the bathroom, I gripped the marble countertop and stared at my reflection. The woman in the mirror looked scared, out of place, exactly how Evelyn wanted me to feel. Not anymore. I pulled out my phone and texted Jenna. Need everything you can find on Victoria and the Prescotts. Time to fight fire with fire. Jenna's research arrived in a flood of texts at 3 a.m. I couldn't sleep anyway, lying there in Lucas's empty bed. He was working late again, the 3rd time this week since the dinner disaster. Girl, you won't believe this, Jenna's final message read. Victoria Chong isn't just Lucas's ex. She's on the Prescott Foundation board now. And guess who just approved a $50 million donation to rebuild the pediatric wing at my hospital? I stared at my phone until the screen went dark, then got up and started packing. By sunrise, I'd filled 3 boxes with my things from Lucas's apartment. My classroom felt like the only safe space left, until Sarah Chen appeared in my doorway during lunch break. "Harper, do you have a minute?" Her usual warmth was replaced with something careful, measured. "The board is calling an emergency meeting this afternoon. They've received some concerning information." My stomach dropped. "About me?" She nodded, not quite meeting my eyes. "They're saying there are photos from last year's field trip with Jason Miller's father." Jason Miller, the quiet kid whose parents went through a brutal divorce. His father had hugged me, crying, after I helped Jason through a panic attack during the museum trip. "That's ridiculous," I said. "There were dozens of parent chaperones that day." "I know, but..." Sarah hesitated. "The foundation is our biggest donor. Mrs. Prescott has considerable influence." Of course she did. I was gathering my things to leave when Henry Prescott appeared in my classroom. He looked older than he had at dinner, tired around the eyes. "Miss Sullivan, may I?" He gestured to one of the tiny student chairs. I nodded, watching him fold his tall frame into the chair with surprising grace. "My wife," he said carefully, "is very protective of our family's reputation. Sometimes destructively so." "Is that why you're here? To protect the family reputation?" He smiled sadly. "No. I'm here because 30 years ago I made the mistake of letting Evelyn drive away someone I cared about. Someone who wasn't suitable. I've regretted it every day since." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Lucas. "Where are you? Why are your things packed?" He doesn't know what his mother is doing, does he? I asked Henry. Lucas sees the best in people, especially his mother. Henry stood up, wincing slightly. But he's not blind, just afraid of losing his family. The question is, are you afraid of losing yours? He placed a business card on my desk. "My private number. When you're ready to fight back, call me." That evening, I found Lucas waiting at my apartment. "You're moving out?" Without talking to me. His voice cracked. "Harper, whatever's wrong, we can fix it." "Can we?" "Because your mother is trying to destroy my career, and you're too busy having drinks with Victoria to notice." "That's not..." "Wait, how do you know about your lunch meetings? The foundation dinner last week?" "Jenna works at the hospital, Lucas. People talk." He ran his hands through his hair, pacing. "It's not what you think. Victoria's helping me with a project. The pediatric wing." "I know." I felt strangely calm now. "The same week your mother threatens my job, you're secretly meeting with your ex to arrange a multi-million-dollar donation. Quite a coincidence." "Harper, please." "The board meeting today? They're reviewing photos your mother somehow got, trying to paint me as someone who preys on vulnerable parents." My voice finally broke. "And where were you? Having another business lunch with Victoria?" The silence stretched between us like a chasm. "I love you," he finally said. "But you don't understand the pressure, the expectations." "You're right. I don't understand choosing family reputation over doing what's right." I pulled out Henry's card. "But I understand fighting back." Lucas's eyes widened. "My father gave you that?" "Harper, whatever you're thinking." "Get out, Lucas." I opened the door. "And tell your mother she picked the wrong teacher to bully." After he left, I called Henry's number. It was time to learn how the other half really lived, and how they could fall. Henry's information led me to the annual Prescott Foundation Gala, though not as a guest. I was working it, serving champagne to the city's elite while gathering intel. Jenna had pulled strings through her hospital connections to get me in, disguised as catering staff. Mrs. Prescott likes her martinis extra dry, Victoria's voice carried across the ballroom. She stood with Evelyn, both of them glittering in designer gowns. Just like her sense of humor. Their laughter felt like needles under my skin. I adjusted my black uniform and kept moving, Henry's words echoing in my head. Watch, listen, and wait for the right moment. Lucas arrived late, looking uncomfortable in his tuxedo. The sight of him still made my heart skip, even after everything. He scanned the room, and for a moment our eyes met. I turned away quickly, but not before seeing the flash of recognition cross his face. Harper! He started moving toward me, but Victoria intercepted him. Dance with me, she purred, leading him to the floor. Your mother's been asking about the ring. The champagne flute in my hand cracked. I set the tray down, ducking into a service corridor to check my bleeding palm. Quite a grip you've got there. I spun around. Henry stood in the shadows, holding out a handkerchief. I shouldn't be here, I whispered, wrapping my hand. This was a mistake. On the contrary, in about 10 minutes, Evelyn will make her annual speech. And this year, she's in for quite a surprise. Before I could ask what he meant, screams erupted from the ballroom. We rushed back to find Evelyn sprawled on the marble floor, Victoria kneeling beside her. She just collapsed. Victoria's voice carried across the stunned crowd. Lucas, call an ambulance. I started to retreat, but Henry gripped my arm. Wait. Evelyn stirred, her voice weak but carrying in the silent room. Victoria. The papers. My purse. Victoria grabbed Evelyn's clutch, but as she opened it, papers spilled across the floor. I recognized them immediately. The threatening letter, the doctored photos, but also something else. Bank statements. Transfer records. Lucas picked up one of the papers, his face darkening. Mother, what is this? Why are you transferring foundation money to a private account? It's not what you think, Victoria jumped in. We were restructuring the pediatric wing funding. Through your personal account? Henry's voice boomed across the room. Interesting approach to philanthropy. Crowd began to murmur. I watched Evelyn's face as she realized what was happening. Her collapse had scattered the evidence of her schemes for everyone to see. You, she hissed, looking at Henry. You planned this. No, my dear. You did. Every scheme, every manipulation, every attempt to control our son's life. I just made sure the truth came out. Lucas was still reading through the papers, his hands shaking. The threatening letters to Harper, the false accusations. You were behind all of it. I was protecting you. Evelyn struggled to her feet, shrugging off Victoria's help. That girl would have ruined everything we built. The only thing ruined, Henry said quietly, is your credibility. The board members here tonight have seen enough, I think. I started backing away again, but Lucas caught sight of me. Harper, wait. He moved toward me, but stopped short when Victoria grabbed his arm. Lucas, please, Victoria pleaded. Everything I did for us. There is no us, he snapped, pulling away. There never was. But I was already running, pushing through the service entrance into the cool night air. Behind me, I could hear Lucas calling my name, Evelyn's angry shouts, the growing chaos of the gala falling apart. My phone buzzed, a text from Henry, Phase 1 complete. Ready for Phase 2. I stared at the message, my bleeding hand throbbing in time with my racing heart. Evelyn was exposed, but not destroyed. Victoria was desperate, which made her dangerous. And Lucas? Another text came through, this time from Lucas. I know the truth now. Please let me explain. I deleted both messages without responding. Revenge, I was learning, was like a champagne glass, crystal clear until it shattered, leaving everyone bleeding. The question was, how much more blood would be spilled before this was over? The morning sickness hit just as I was reviewing Henry's latest message about Phase 2 of our plan. Funny how life has its own timing. I barely made it to the bathroom before losing my breakfast, my phone clattering to the floor. 3 pregnancy tests later, I sat on my bathroom floor, staring at identical pink lines that were about to complicate everything. My phone buzzed again. "Lucas, we need to talk. Please." Before I could respond, another message came through, from Victoria this time. "Meeting at Riverside Park. 2 p.m. Come alone or the school board gets an anonymous tip about your condition." My hand instinctively went to my stomach. I hadn't told anyone yet, not even Jenna. How did Victoria know? Park was deserted except for a few joggers. Victoria sat on a bench overlooking the river, looking perfectly put together despite the scandal at the gala. "Evelyn's in the hospital," she said without looking at me. "Stress-induced breakdown, they're saying. The foundation board is launching an investigation." I didn't come here to discuss Evelyn. No. She finally turned to me, her smile sharp. Not even to discuss how she'll react when she learns she's going to be a grandmother? Though I suppose that depends on who the father really is. My blood ran cold. "What are you talking about?" "Jason Miller's father. The one from those photos? You two seemed close." She pulled out her phone, showing me a series of pictures. Me hugging Mark Miller during the field trip, both of us crying. Without context, it looked intimate, damning. "Those pictures are from months ago. He was thanking me for helping his son. Details don't matter. What matters is the timing." She zoomed in on the date stamp. "About 12 weeks ago, wasn't it? Around when you and Lucas were taking a break?" The nausea returned, stronger this time. "You're insane." "Maybe. But I'm also very good at math. And very good at making people believe what I want them to believe." She stood up, smoothing her skirt. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave town. Start fresh somewhere else. I'll make sure you get a good recommendation for a teaching position far away. And if I don't, then these photos go public, along with some very convincing evidence about when exactly you started showing. Lucas will never know for sure if the baby is his. Neither will anyone else." My phone buzzed again. "Henry, don't do anything rash. We're close to." Victoria snatched my phone, reading the message before I could stop her. Her laugh was cold. "Still plotting with Henry? Poor Harper. You really think he cares about you? He's just using you to get back at Evelyn, just like she used me." She threw my phone into the river before I could react. "You have 48 hours to decide. After that, everything goes public." She started walking away, then paused. "Oh, and Harper? Lucas proposed to me last night. He thinks it's best for everyone if we stick to our original plan. The plan his mother and I made years ago." I watched her leave, my mind spinning. Without my phone, I couldn't contact Henry or verify her claim about Lucas. Pregnancy tests felt like they were burning a hole in my pocket. Walking home, I passed the elementary school. Sarah Chen was outside, speaking with what looked like board members. They stopped talking when they saw me, their expressions grim. At my apartment, Lucas was waiting by the door. "Harper, thank God. I've been trying to reach you." I pushed past him into my apartment, but he followed. "My mother's in the hospital. Victoria says you threatened her at the gala, that you and my father planned everything. And you believe her?" My voice cracked. He ran his hands through his hair, looking lost. "I don't know what to believe anymore." But Victoria showed me the photos. From the field trip. "Why didn't you tell me about Mark Miller?" I stood there, one hand unconsciously protecting my stomach, watching the man I loved choose to believe the worst about me. "Get out," I whispered. "Harper, get out." After he left, I sat in the dark, surrounded by the ruins of my life. My career, my relationship, my reputation, all destroyed. And now, a baby whose paternity would always be questioned. Victoria had one. Or maybe Evelyn had. In the end, did it matter which Prescott woman destroyed me? I wasn't planning to go to the hospital. But when Henry texted from my mother's borrowed phone about Evelyn demanding a DNA test, something in me snapped. 3 days of hiding in my apartment, throwing up and crying, had left me raw and reckless. The hospital corridor smelled of antiseptic and lies. Victoria stood outside Evelyn's private room, blocking my path. "You're not welcome here," she hissed. "Actually, she is." Henry emerged from the room. The DNA test results just arrived. Victoria's perfect composure cracked. "That's impossible," the lab said. "I had them rush it." Henry's smile was cold. Along with another test I requested, one comparing Lucas's DNA to mine. The hallway went silent. Lucas appeared behind Victoria, holding a manila envelope. "Open it," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. He did, his hands shaking slightly. I watched his face as he read, saw the moment everything he thought he knew crumbled. "This can't be right," he whispered. "What does it say?" Victoria demanded. "The baby is mine." Lucas looked up at me, then at Henry. "But according to this, you're not my father." A harsh laugh came from inside the room. Evelyn stood in the doorway, still elegant despite her hospital gown. "Of course he's not." Her voice was bitter. "Henry's known for years. Haven't you, dear? Known that your precious son belongs to Charles Winston." Victoria went pale. "Charles Winston? My father?" And suddenly everything clicked into place. Victoria wasn't just Evelyn's ally, she was Lucas's half-sister. "That's why you've been so desperate to keep us apart," I said to Victoria. "You knew the truth would come out if anyone looked too closely at the family genetics." "I was protecting our family." Victoria's composure shattered completely. "Mother promised if I helped her, no one would ever know." "Know what?" Lucas cut in. "That you're my sister? That everything, the photos, the threats, the lies about Harper, was to keep this secret?" "To protect you," Evelyn insisted. Victoria understood what was at stake. "Our reputation, our standing." "Your lies," Henry corrected. "I kept your secret for years, Evelyn, because I loved Lucas as my own. But watching you destroy an innocent woman's life to protect your precious reputation? That's when I knew it had to end." I stepped closer to Evelyn's bed. "You were so worried about your family's reputation being ruined by a teacher. But you ruined it yourself years ago. You understand nothing." Evelyn tried to sit up, her monitor beeping frantically. "Everything I did was for this family." "No," Lucas said quietly. "Everything you did was for yourself." He turned to Victoria. "You're my sister. All this time, you knew and still helped her try to destroy Harper?" Victoria flinched. "Lucas, please. Get out." His voice was ice. "Both of you. I never want to see either of you again." Evelyn made a choked sound. "Lucas," he said, "get out." I surprised myself by taking Lucas's hand. He squeezed back. After they left, Henry handed me another envelope. "The board members received copies this morning. Every scheme, every manipulation documented. Your reputation is cleared, Harper. The school board is meeting tomorrow to formally apologize." Lucas turned to me, his eyes full of pain and hope. "Harper, I'm so sorry. I should have trusted you, should have seen through their lies. The baby, our baby, isn't going to fix this," I finished. "Trust, once broken, isn't easily repaired." "I know." He swallowed hard. "But I want to try. If you'll let me." I looked at Henry, who nodded slightly. "Sometimes," he said, "the truth hurts before it heals." Inside the hospital, the sun was setting. I touched my stomach, thinking about the tiny life growing there, free now from Victoria's threats and Evelyn's lies. But as Lucas held the car door open for me, I wondered if knowing the truth was really the same as finding peace. Some wounds, like some secrets, take longer to heal than others. 6 months later, I stood in my classroom watching my students file out for winter break. My expanding belly made it harder to reach the top of the whiteboard now, but the kids found it endlessly fascinating, especially when the baby kicked during story time. The last parent left, and I noticed an envelope on my desk. For a moment, my heart stopped, but this one was different, cream-colored with a hospital logo. "Thought you might want to see this," Henry said from the doorway. He'd been stopping by regularly, checking on me in his quiet way. "Evelyn's doctors say the treatment is working. The personality disorder diagnosis explains a lot, though it doesn't excuse anything." I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter in Evelyn's handwriting, different now, shakier, more human. "You don't have to read it," Henry added quickly. "I know. But I did anyway." The letter wasn't an apology exactly. Evelyn wrote about control, about fear, about watching her perfect world crumble decades ago when Charles Winston ended their affair. How she'd shaped Victoria into her image, weaponizing her own daughter's pain. How seeing Lucas happy with me had triggered all her old fears of losing control. "She's asking to meet," I said finally. "To talk about the baby." Henry nodded. "Lucas knows. He's leaving the decision to you." Lucas and I were trying. Slowly, carefully, rebuilding trust through therapy sessions and honest conversations. He'd moved into a small apartment nearby, close enough to be involved with the pregnancy, far enough to give me the space I needed. Victoria had left town after the truth came out, but she'd sent one message through Henry. "I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt my brother." She was in therapy too, I heard, working through what it meant to be both victim and perpetrator in her mother's games. "Miss Sullivan?" Sarah Chen appeared in my doorway, holding a gift bag. "The PDA wanted you to have this for the baby." Inside was a beautiful hand-knitted blanket. Card was signed by all the parents, including Mark Miller, whose son Jason had finally started smiling again in class. "We never doubted you," Sarah said softly. "Not really." That evening, I met Lucas at our favorite Thai place. He looked tired but hopeful, the way he always did these days. "I got Mom's letter too," he said after we ordered. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking about cycles," I replied. "How hurt people. How secrets poison families across generations." He reached for my hand across the table. And I don't want that for our son." I placed his hand on my belly where the baby was kicking. "But I don't want him growing up without knowing his family either, the good and the bad parts. The whole messy truth." "So you'll meet with her?" "Yes. But not alone." I squeezed his hand. "We do this together or not at all." Later that night, I found another envelope in my coat pocket, this one from my mother. Inside was an old photo of her holding me as a baby and a simple note: "Love protects, but fear controls. Choose love always." I pinned the photo next to my ultrasound picture, studying the two images. In both, there was fear, hope, love, possibility. The cycle of family, breaking and healing, breaking and healing. My phone buzzed with a text from Henry. "Evelyn's doctors cleared her for visitors next week." Still sure about this? I looked at the ultrasound again, at this tiny person who would inherit all our stories, all our scars, all our hopes for something better. "Yes," I texted back. "It's time to break the cycle." Because that's the thing about family secrets, they don't die in the light. They transform. Sometimes into understanding, sometimes into forgiveness, sometimes into wisdom that helps the next generation choose a different path. I touched my belly, feeling my son move. "We'll do better," I whispered. "Not perfect, but better." And in the end, maybe that's all any family can hope for. The chance to learn from the past without being trapped by it, to love despite the scars. To choose truth over comfort, healing over hiding. To begin again, eyes wide open, hearts cautiously hopeful, ready to write a new story.
The call came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was knee-deep in quarterly reports. My name is Harper, and that call would end up turning my carefully structured life inside out. "We want you to head up the new branch," my boss said, her voice crackling through my phone speaker. "It's in your hometown, Millbrook. The salary bump is significant, and you'd have full autonomy over operations." I nearly dropped my coffee. Running my own branch had been my goal for years. But Millbrook? I'd spent the last 6 years building a life in Chicago specifically to avoid that place. "I'll need your answer by Friday," she continued. "The Thompson Industries contract depends on having someone with local connections leading the project." Thompson Industries. Of course. The same company my brother Ethan worked for, or more accurately, the company owned by his fiancée's family. The universe really does have a sick sense of humor. "I'll think about it," I managed to say, even as my stomach twisted into knots. That evening, I called my younger sister Zoe. She picked up on the first ring like she always does. "Harper, save me from this wedding planning nightmare," she groaned. "Vanessa's making us try on the 5th set of bridesmaid dresses because apparently Coral is so last season now." "How's Mia handling it?" I asked, thinking of our 15-year-old sister. "Oh, you know Mia. She's doing that thing where she smiles and nods while plotting revenge in her head." Zoe paused. "You sound weird. What's up?" I told her about the job offer. The line went quiet for so long I thought we'd lost connection. "Mom and Dad are going to flip," she finally said. "In a good way, I mean. They've been weird since Ethan got engaged to Vanessa. Like they're trying to prove something to the Thompsons." "That's exactly what I'm afraid of," I admitted. "Remember last Christmas? When Dad practically tripped over himself showing off Ethan's engagement photos to Richard Thompson, while completely ignoring your promotion announcement." "Yeah, that was subtle." I walked to my apartment window, looking out at the Chicago skyline. 6 years of building a life here, of proving I could make it on my own. But this opportunity, it was everything I'd worked for. "You should take it," Zoe said firmly. "Show them you're not just the middle child who ran away. Plus, I miss you. And Mia needs someone sane around here." Later that night, my phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of Vanessa, Ethan, and my parents at some fancy restaurant. The caption read, "Family dinner planning the wedding. Wish you could have made it."
V.
I hadn't been invited. Of course. The next morning, I called my boss and accepted the position. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about proving them wrong. When I called my parents to tell them I was moving back, my mother's response was telling. "Oh, that's wonderful, honey. And perfect timing. You can help with the wedding preparations. Vanessa's father is sparing no expense, you know. The Thompsons really know how to do things properly." I bit back what I wanted to say. Instead, I replied, "Actually, I'll be pretty busy. I'm running the new branch that's handling their biggest account." The silence on the other end was satisfying, but what my father said next caught me off guard. "The Thompson Industries expansion project?" But Ethan said he was handling that through Vanessa's family business. That was news to me. And judging by my father's tone, it was about to become a very big problem. "Well," I said, keeping my voice steady, "I guess we'll all be working together then." As I hung up the phone, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking into a trap. But for once, I wasn't going to back down. It was time to show my family, especially Vanessa, exactly what the forgotten middle child could do. Moving back into my childhood home felt like stepping into a time machine, except everything had been redecorated to Vanessa's taste. The familiar family photos were replaced with professional engagement shots, and my old bedroom had been converted into what my mother called the wedding planning room. I was unpacking in Mia's room, my temporary accommodation, when I heard the commotion downstairs. Zoe's voice carried up the stairs, strained and defensive. "But I already bought the dress you approved last week." "That was before I saw what the Thompson cousins are wearing," Vanessa's voice replied, dripping with false sympathy. "We can't have the bridesmaids looking."
Discount, can we?
I gripped the doorframe, counting to 10 before heading downstairs. The scene in the living room stopped me cold. Zoe stood in the middle of the room, wearing a pale blue bridesmaid dress that looked perfect on her. Mia sat in the corner, headphones on, pretending to do homework while obviously eavesdropping. Vanessa circled Zoe like a shark, phone in hand. Harper. My mother jumped up from the couch. Perfect timing. Maybe you can help convince Zoe that Vanessa's right about the dresses. The new ones are only $3,000 each, Vanessa added, not looking up from her phone. I'm sure between the three of you girls, you can manage it. $3,000. For a dress Zoe would wear once. I watched my sister's face crumple slightly before she caught herself. Actually, I said, keeping my voice level, I have a meeting with Richard Thompson tomorrow about the new branch. Maybe I should ask him about the wedding budget while I'm there. The room went silent. Vanessa's head snapped up, her perfectly maintained smile slipping for just a second. Oh, didn't Ethan tell you? She recovered quickly. Daddy's letting him handle all the business aspects of the expansion. We wouldn't want to confuse things with too many cooks in the kitchen. Funny, I replied. That's not what my contract says. The front door opened and Ethan walked in, his timing impeccable as always. What's not what your contract says? Before I could respond, Vanessa was at his side, her hand on his arm. Darling, I thought we agreed you'd handle the Thompson Industries project? Harper seems to think she's running it. Ethan's expression shifted from confusion to that familiar, patronizing smile. Come on, sis. You know how these things work. The Thompson name carries weight around here. It'll be better for everyone if I take point on this. Everyone meaning you? The words slipped out before I could stop them. Harper, my father warned from his armchair. Your brother has connections here. Real relationships with the business community. Maybe it's time to be practical. I looked around the room, at Zoe in her beautiful dress that apparently wasn't good enough, at Mia pretending not to care, at my parents deferring to Vanessa's every whim. 6 years away hadn't changed anything. Practical, I repeated. Like spending $3,000 on new dresses when the ones we have are perfectly fine? Or letting Ethan take credit for my work because he's marrying into the right family? You always do this, Ethan sighed. Turn everything into a competition. This is my wedding we're talking about. No, Vanessa cut in, her voice honey-sweet but her eyes cold. This is about family. And family supports each other, doesn't it? Unless. You're not planning to make things difficult, are you, Harper? The threat was clear in her tone. I looked at Zoe, who shook her head slightly, a warning not to make things worse. But I was done playing nice. You know what? You're right, Vanessa. Family does support each other. Which is why I'm taking Zoe shopping tomorrow for whatever dress she wants to wear. And as for the Thompson Industries project, I pulled out my phone, showing the email from my boss. Maybe you should read the contract terms more carefully. Both of you. I turned and walked out, but not before catching Mia's small smile behind her textbook. As I climbed the stairs, I heard Vanessa's voice, sharp and clear. Well, I suppose some people just don't understand how things work here anymore. Such a shame. Game on, I thought. Let's see how things really work. The truth hit me like a slap to the face when I found the papers in my father's home office. I wasn't looking for them. I was searching for last year's tax documents for the new branch paperwork. Instead, I found loan agreements between my father and Richard Thompson, dated back to when Ethan first started dating Vanessa. My hands shook as I read the details. Personal loans, business investments, property deals, all arranged through Thompson Industries, all benefiting my brother. The amounts made my stomach turn. No wonder my parents had been so eager to push this wedding forward. My phone buzzed, a text from Mia. SOS. V making me skip dance recital for wedding stuff. Again. I was still staring at the message when my father walked in. He froze in the doorway, his eyes going from my face to the papers in my hands. Those are private business matters, he said quietly. Private. I held up one of the documents. Like how Ethan's new position at Thompson Industries came with a $100,000 signing bonus that went straight to paying off your debts. He closed the door behind him. You don't understand the pressure we've been under. The recession hit the business hard. When Ethan met Vanessa, you sold him to them. I cut in. And now you're letting them walk all over this family because you're afraid they'll call in their debts. I'm protecting this family. His voice rose sharply. Richard Thompson could destroy everything we've built. Your mother's security, your sister's future. By letting Vanessa control their lives? Making Mia miss her performances? Forcing Zoe to spend money she doesn't have. A knock at the door made us both jump. Vanessa stood there, wearing her practiced smile. "I thought I heard voices," she said sweetly. "Harper, Daddy was asking about you. He mentioned something about the project management role being better suited for someone with more local experience." My father wouldn't meet my eyes. The implications were clear: play nice, or watch my career disappear too. "Actually," I said, "I just found some very interesting documents about local experience. Want to take a look?" Vanessa's smile flickered. "I'm sure whatever business arrangements exist are perfectly normal for families in our position." "Our position?" I laughed. "You mean where you hold financial threats over everyone's heads to get what you want?" "Harper," my father warned. "No," I snapped. "I'm done pretending. Did you know she's making Mia skip her dance recital? The one she's been practicing for all year." "The wedding planning schedule is very tight," Vanessa said. "Sacrifices have to be made. Family understands that." "Family understands limits," I corrected her. "Family doesn't use money as a weapon." Vanessa stepped closer, dropping her voice. "Speaking of limits, it would be a shame if Daddy had to reconsider the expansion project's management structure. Ethan's been so looking forward to proving himself." "Is that what this is about?" I held up my phone, showing her my email inbox. "Because I have some interesting correspondence about who actually secured the Thompson Industries contract. Want to guess whose name isn't on any of it?" The color drained from her face. Before she could respond, Ethan appeared in the doorway. "What's going on?" he asked, looking between us. "Your sister was just leaving," Vanessa said firmly. I gathered the documents, watching my father's face fall as I tucked them into my bag. "No, I think I'll stay. We should all talk about these loan agreements. As a family." "Harper, please," my father began.
Dad.
Ethan's confusion was genuine. "What loan agreements?" I met Vanessa's gaze. Should I tell him, or would you like to explain how his perfect job offer came about? The silence that followed was deafening. Sometimes revenge isn't about winning, it's about forcing the truth into the light. As I watched my brother's face change from confusion to understanding, I realized this was just the beginning of what would become a very uncomfortable family reunion. "Well," Vanessa said, her mask finally cracking, "I suppose we'll have to discuss this at dinner. All of us, including Daddy." The threat in her voice was clear, but for once, I wasn't backing down. Let her bring Richard Thompson into this. Maybe it was time everyone saw exactly what kind of family we'd become. The family dinner that night was like watching a bomb tick down in slow motion. Richard Thompson sat at our dining table, his presence making everyone except Vanessa visibly uncomfortable. My mother's hands shook as she served the food, and my father kept glancing between Richard and the documents I'd discovered, which now sat in my laptop bag by the door. Mia slipped into the seat next to me, whispering, "Did you know he was coming?" I shook my head, watching Vanessa orchestrate the seating arrangements, so Ethan sat between her and her father. My brother looked pale, still processing the revelations about his job from earlier. "So, Harper," Richard said, cutting into a steak, "tell me about your plans for the new branch. I'm particularly interested in your thoughts on local partnerships." Before I could answer, Vanessa jumped in. "Daddy, remember what we discussed about keeping business matters separate from family time?" "Actually," I said, meeting Richard's eyes, "I'd love to discuss the project. Especially since there seems to be some confusion about who's handling what." Zoe kicked me under the table, a warning, but I was done playing nice. "Speaking of handling things," Vanessa said sweetly, "Mia, have you told everyone about changing your dance recital date?" Mia froze beside me.
I
haven't decided." "Oh, but you must," Vanessa pressed. "The wedding rehearsal schedule is already set. Richard, you understand the importance of commitment, don't you?" I watched my youngest sister shrink in her chair, and something inside me snapped. "Mia's not changing her recital," I said firmly. "Harper," my father warned.
No.
I set down my fork. "Mia's been working toward this for months. The wedding can work around it." Richard looked between us, his expression curious. I wasn't aware there was a scheduling conflict. There isn't, Vanessa said quickly. Just a small misunderstanding about priorities. Priorities? I laughed. Like the priority of using your father's money to control this entire family? The room went silent. My mother gasped softly, and my father half rose from his chair. That's enough, Ethan said, but his voice wavered. Richard set down his utensils. What exactly do you mean by that, Harper? I reached for my bag, but Vanessa was faster. Daddy, Harper's just upset because she's having trouble adjusting to being home. Maybe we should. Let her speak, Richard interrupted, his tone sharp. I'm interested in hearing this. I pulled out the loan documents. Your daughter and my brother's perfect relationship? It was bought and paid for by Thompson Industries. Every job offer, every investment. It's all been about control. These are private family matters. My father started, but Richard held up his hand. David, is this true? The silence that followed was deafening. Vanessa's perfect mask cracked slightly as she watched her father scan the documents. Mr. Thompson, my mother began. We never meant. Stop, Mia suddenly said, her voice stronger than I'd ever heard it. Just stop lying. All of you. She turned to Richard. Do you want to know what else your daughter's been doing? Check my phone. I recorded everything. Vanessa's face went white. You what? Mia pulled out her phone, hands shaking but determined. Every threat, every manipulation. I saved it all. Mia, honey, my mother pleaded. Think about what you're doing to the family. The family? I stood up. Look what we've already done to this family. We're all so scared of losing the Thompsons' money that we're letting Vanessa destroy us. Richard took Mia's phone, his expression unreadable. I think, he said slowly, we need to have a very different kind of family discussion. Vanessa reached for the phone. Daddy, please. Not now, Vanessa. His voice was ice. Harper, Mia, would you join me in the study? Bring those documents. As we stood to leave, I caught Ethan's eye. For the first time since this all began, he looked lost, the golden sun finally seeing his perfect world crumble. The truth hurts, doesn't it? I said softly as I passed him. Sometimes revenge comes in unexpected ways, I thought, following Richard Thompson down the hall. And sometimes it's not about winning. It's about finally being heard. The email from Vanessa arrived at 3 a.m., a week after the disastrous dinner. I stared at my phone, reading and rereading the attached photos, old family pictures I'd never seen before, showing my father meeting with Richard Thompson years ago, long before Ethan and Vanessa started dating. The message was simple: $10,000.
Cash.
Or these and the real story behind them go public. Think about what that would do to your precious family name.
My hands shook as I got dressed.
Dawn was breaking when I pulled up to the coffee shop where Ethan had asked to meet me. He sat in the corner, looking like he hadn't slept in days. Did you know? I asked, sliding into the seat across from him. About Dad and Richard?
No.
He pushed a coffee toward me. But I found more documents last night. The Thompson connection goes back further than we thought. He's been laundering money through the business. The world tilted sideways. What? Vanessa knows everything. She's been collecting evidence for years, waiting for the right moment. He looked up, his eyes hollow. The wedding isn't just about status, Harper. It's protection. For all of us. My phone buzzed. Another email from Vanessa. More photos. She wants money from me, I said. To keep quiet. Just pay it, Ethan pleaded.
Please.
Mom can't handle a scandal. And Dad. They'll arrest him, Harper. The coffee turned bitter in my mouth. So, we just let her win? Let her keep controlling everyone. It's not about winning anymore. He ran his hands through his hair. Mia showed Richard those recordings, and now he's launching an internal audit. If they find the money trail... My phone rang. Zoe. Harper, you need to come home.
Now.
Vanessa's here with her lawyer. When we arrived, the scene in the living room made my stomach drop. Our parents sat rigid on the couch, while Vanessa stood by the fireplace, a thick folder in her hands. Her lawyer, A sharp-faced woman in an expensive suit was laying out documents on the coffee table. Perfect timing, Vanessa smiled. We were just discussing the terms of my silence. Terms? I moved closer to Mia, who was huddled in the corner armchair. Well, we can't have Richard finding out about your father's creative accounting, can we? Not when it could ruin so many lives. She pulled out a document. I've drawn up a new contract. The branch project goes to Ethan, as originally planned. And you, Harper, will make a public statement about stepping down due to personal issues. You can't do this, Zoe started, but our father cut her off. Harper, please. Just sign it. I looked around the room, at my father's defeated posture, my mother's tears, Ethan's guilt, and my sister's fear. 6 years away hadn't been enough. I'd come back thinking I could protect them, but I'd only made things worse. No, I said quietly. Vanessa's smile faltered. Excuse me? I said no. I walked to the coffee table and picked up the contract, tearing it in half. You want to destroy this family? Go ahead. But you'll have to destroy me first. Harper, my mother sobbed. I'm done being afraid of you, Vanessa. Send whatever you want to Richard. Release the photos. I don't care anymore. Vanessa's lawyer stepped forward. Miss Collins, I advise you to reconsider. Get out, I said, my voice steady. Both of you. And Vanessa? The wedding's off. Tell Richard everything, because if you don't, I will. The silence that followed was broken by Mia standing up. I'm going with Harper. Me too, Zoe added. Vanessa's mask cracked completely. You're bluffing. You wouldn't dare. I pulled out my phone, dialing Richard's number. Last chance, I said. Leave now, or I burn everything down, including your reputation with Daddy. As Vanessa stormed out, I caught Ethan's eye. For the first time, I saw something there besides disappointment, respect. Sometimes protecting your family means being willing to lose them. I looked at my sisters, both standing beside me now, and realized that maybe I hadn't lost anything worth keeping after all. Pack your bags, I told them. You're staying with me tonight. The war wasn't over, but at least now we were fighting it on our terms. The Thompson Industries boardroom felt colder than usual as I laid out the evidence, financial records, text messages, recordings. Everything we had on Vanessa, everything about my father's involvement. Richard Thompson sat silently, his expression unreadable as he flipped through the documents. Why now? He finally asked. Because she's not just hurting my family anymore, I said. She's using her company to do it. Before he could respond, the door burst open. Vanessa strode in, followed by my father and Ethan. The sight of them together made my stomach turn. Daddy, I can explain everything, Vanessa started, but Richard held up his hand. The board meeting starts in 10 minutes, he said quietly. I suggest everyone take a seat. My father wouldn't look at me as he sat down. Ethan, however, couldn't stop staring, like he was seeing me for the first time. Harper, he whispered, you don't understand what you've done. The board members filed in and Richard stood. Before we begin, I want to address some concerning information that's come to light. Vanessa's hand shot out, gripping my arm. Stop this now, she hissed, or I swear I'll. You'll what? I pulled away. Threaten me again? Release those photos? Go ahead. Richard cleared his throat. The evidence suggests a pattern of financial misconduct involving both Thompson Industries and Collins Enterprises. My father finally looked up, his face ashen. Richard, please. However, Richard continued, what concerns me more is the apparent manipulation and coercion involved. He turned to Vanessa, including by my own daughter. The room went silent. I should have felt triumphant, but something in Richard's tone made my skin crawl. Unfortunately, he said, given the extent of the Collins family's involvement in these irregularities, the board has no choice but to terminate all contracts and pursue legal action.
What?
I stood up. That wasn't the deal. There was no deal, Miss Collins. Richard's voice was ice. You came to me with evidence of criminal activity involving your own family. Did you really think there wouldn't be consequences? Vanessa started laughing, a horrible, broken sound. Oh, this is perfect. You really thought you were protecting everyone, didn't you, Harper? The noble sister, sacrificing everything to save us all. The police have already been notified, Richard announced. I suggest everyone stay where they are. My father put his head in his hands. Ethan reached for his phone, probably to call her mother. And me? I stood there, watching everything I'd tried to protect crumble. You knew, I said to Vanessa. You knew this would happen. She smiled, tears in her eyes. I learned from the best, didn't I, Daddy? Sometimes you have to destroy something to control it. The sound of sirens grew closer. My phone buzzed, a text from Zoe. Police are at the house. Mom's hysterical. What's happening? The Collins family's assets will be frozen pending investigation, Richard continued, including personal accounts. My head spun. The apartment I'd just rented for my sisters, the new branch I was supposed to run, our parents' house, all gone. I'd walked right into their trap, thinking I could beat them at their own game. Mr. Thompson, I tried one last time. My sisters. Should have been your concern before you brought this to my attention. He cut me off. Vanessa might have her faults, but at least she understands loyalty. The police entered the boardroom, and I watched them approach my father first. Ethan stood between them, trying to explain, but it was useless. As they let our father out, he finally spoke to me. I hope your revenge was worth it, he said softly. Vanessa moved to stand beside her father, their united front a stark contrast to my family's dissolution. You should have just paid the money, Harper. Some families can't be saved. They can only be controlled. As the officers approached me, I realized the true cost of trying to protect everyone. I'd lost not just my family, but everything we'd ever built. And somewhere across town, my sisters were watching our world fall apart, thinking I'd betrayed them all. Sometimes the price of doing the right thing is losing everything you fought to protect. The police station's interview room felt smaller with each passing hour. My lawyer had just left to review new evidence when the door opened and Richard Thompson walked in alone. Interesting development, he said, sliding a USB drive across the table. Someone anonymously sent this to every board member an hour ago. My hands shook as I plugged it into the laptop they'd left me. Video files, dozens of them. Security footage from Thompson Industries, showing Richard and Vanessa in various offices, having conversations they never thought would be recorded. Keep watching, Richard said quietly. The next clip showed Vanessa in Richard's office, screaming about the wedding, about controlling the Collins family, about using my father's desperate financial situation to force the merger. Ethan sent these. I realized. He was the only one with access to your security system. My daughter. Richard's voice cracked. She learned her manipulation from me. I taught her that power was everything, that controlling people was the same as leading them.
The door opened again.
Vanessa stood there, mascara streaking her face. You betrayed me, she said to her father. After everything I did to make you proud.
No.
He stood. I failed you, and now I'm going to fix it. She laughed. That same broken sound from the boardroom. Fix it? By throwing everything away? I did what you taught me. I found their weakness. I exploited it. You became me, he cut her off. And that's my greatest shame. My lawyer returned, followed by Ethan and, surprisingly, my father's attorney. The board has reviewed the new evidence, my lawyer announced. They're dropping all charges against the Collins family, except for minor financial infractions that can be settled out of court. What? I stood up. But the investigation was based largely on manufactured evidence, Ethan said, not looking at Vanessa. Evidence that's now been discredited. Vanessa lunged for the laptop, but Richard caught her arm. Enough. For once in your life, face the consequences of your actions. Like you did, she spat. All those years of teaching me how to crush the competition, how to find people's breaking points. Was that all just business, too? Yes, he said softly. And I was wrong. The room fell silent. I watched father and daughter stare at each other, years of toxic lessons and damaged love between them. The board has called an emergency session, Richard continued. I'm stepping down as CEO. And Vanessa. He took a deep breath. You need help. Real help. You can't do this to me, she whispered. No one's doing anything to you, I said, standing up. For once, you're facing exactly what you've earned, just like the rest of us. She turned to Ethan, desperate. Tell them how we were building something together. How? We were building lies, he interrupted. And I helped you hurt my family because I was too afraid to stand up to you. To either of you. He looked at Richard. My lawyer cleared her throat. Miss Thompson, given the new evidence, you have some decisions to make. Your father has offered to cover the cost of a treatment program. Treatment. She laughed again. You think this is about me being broken? This is about power. It's always been about power. Harper understands, don't you? Why else would you fight so hard? I walked to the door, then turned back. I fought for my family. You fought for control. That's the difference. The papers are drawn up, Richard said. Vanessa, please. Let me help you for once, instead of enabling you. She looked around the room, at her father's pleading face, at Ethan's quiet resolve, at the evidence of her own cruelty playing on the laptop screen. Fine, she whispered. You want to see broken? I'll show you broken. But as she reached for the laptop again, her father caught her in his arms, and something finally cracked. She collapsed against him, sobbing like the little girl she must have been once, before power and control became everything. I slipped out of the room, leaving them to their reckoning. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. Sometimes it's about letting them destroy their own carefully built lies. Ethan followed me out. Harper, I'm sorry. For everything. I know, I said. Let's go home. Our sisters are waiting. 6 months later, I stood in the doorway of my new apartment, watching Mia practice her dance routine while Zoe studied for her college entrance exams. The sound of their laughter still felt like a miracle after everything we'd been through. My phone buzzed, a text from Ethan. Dad's asking if you're coming to dinner tonight. These monthly family dinners had become our way of rebuilding. Small steps, careful conversations, and the slow process of learning to trust again. Our parents were different now, humbled by their mistakes, trying to make amends in their own way. We should go, Zoe said, looking up from her books. Mom mentioned she's making your favorite lasagna. And Vanessa? Mia asked quietly. I checked my email, finding her latest update from the treatment center. She'd been writing to me, not asking for forgiveness, just sharing her journey of understanding why she'd become who she was. Her last message ended with a question that had kept me awake at night. How do you fix a family once you've broken it? She's still working on herself, I replied. Just like we all are.
The doorbell rang.
Our father stood there, looking older, but somehow lighter. I thought I'd drive you all to dinner, he said. If that's okay. I watched him interact with my sisters, really seeing them this time, not just viewing them through the lens of his ambitions. He'd started attending Mia's dance recitals, helping Zoe research colleges. Small things, but real ones. Harper, he said as we walked his car, the new branch numbers came in. You've done an incredible job. Thanks, Dad. I smiled, remembering how differently those words would have felt 6 months ago. But it's not just me. Ethan's been instrumental in rebuilding our client relationships. My brother had surprised everyone by starting his own consulting firm, refusing Richard Thompson's offer to stay with the company. Some legacies aren't worth preserving, he'd said. At dinner, our mother had set an extra place at the table, force of habit from when it was supposed to be Vanessa's seat. Now it served as a reminder of how easily a family could lose its way. I saw Richard at the grocery store, my mother said, passing the salad. He mentioned Vanessa might come home for Christmas. The table went quiet. Mia reached for my hand under the table. That's good, I said finally. Everyone deserves a chance to heal. Do they? Zoe asked, her voice sharp. After everything she did? I thought about Vanessa's last email, about Richard's face when he realized what his lessons had created, about our own parents learning to value happiness over status. Sometimes the people who hurt us are the ones who are hurt the worst, I said. It doesn't excuse what they did, but it helps explain it. Like Dad's business decisions? Mia asked quietly. Our father set down his fork. Like a lot of things I did, thinking I was protecting this family. I was wrong, and I'm trying to make it right. Later that night, back at our apartment, I found a letter in my bag, Vanessa's handwriting on the envelope. Inside was a check for the exact amount she'd tried to extort from me, along with a note. Not as redemption, but as a reminder that some debts can never really be repaid. Use it for your sister's future. I tore up the check and wrote back a single line. Some debts aren't about money. Zoe appeared in my doorway. You okay? Yeah, I smiled. Just thinking about how sometimes protecting your family means knowing when to fight and when to forgive. And which is this? She asked. I looked at my sisters, strong, resilient, free from the shadows that had nearly broken us, and realized that maybe the answer wasn't about fighting or forgiving at all. Maybe it was about building something new from the pieces of what was broken. This, I said, is about choosing who we want to be, not who we're afraid of becoming. Mia turned up her dance music, pulling us both up to join her. As we danced in our small living room, I thought about family, not the one we'd lost, but the one we'd chosen to build together. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting free.